Wow, we've got a lot to get into today. 2019 starting off with a bang, and one of the biggest events is going down Friday, January 25th. The Friday night before the Royal Rumble in Phoenix, Arizona, Notsam Wrestling comes to Copper Blues Live. CBLive.com for tickets. Friday night, January 25th at 7:30 p.m. Notsam Wrestling comes to Copper Blues Live. We'll have guests, we'll have games. We've got a whole show planned out. You're not going to want to miss it. You won't have to miss that if you get tickets, and you won't have to miss today's Notsam Wrestling because it starts right now.
This is Notsam Wrestling.
Introducing your host from New York, here is Sam Roberts.
Woo! I really am excited about the event coming to Phoenix that we're doing. About the live Notsam Wrestling coming to Phoenix, Arizona, Copper Blues Live, CBLive.com, the Friday night before the Royal Rumble. I'm putting it together. I'm trying to create a new live event experience. It's an experience that you're only going to get. It's a Notsam Wrestling experience, but an experience you'll only get live. And you'll be able to be there. CBLive.com for tickets. January 25th, Friday night before the Royal Rumble. Welcome. It's the first Notsam Wrestling of 2019, and I am so excited to be here with you. We've got a lot to talk about. We've got Wrestle Kingdom coming up, and while we're plugging stuff, I'll be doing a bonus show this week. Friday afternoon after Wrestle Kingdom. I will be maybe like 3 or 4 in the afternoon. I'll pop on to patreon.com/Notsam Wrestling. And if you're subscribed to the tier level that gets the live pre and post shows, I'll be doing an exclusive Wrestle Kingdom post show for all the Notsam shills at patreon.com/Notsam Wrestling. But so much to talk about this week. We've got our interview with MJF. We've got All Elite Wrestling, the Royal Rumble coming up. Of course, Wrestle Kingdom will break down, but I'd say the biggest thing going on right now is the fact that this morning after I got done with the radio show, I'm taping this on Wednesday for the Thursday release, and this morning I get done with my radio show on Sirius XM, and I read the news that we have lost Mean Gene Okerlund. Mean Gene's contributions to wrestling in general can't really be overstated. You know, one of the things that I like to do working with WWE is every time I get a WWE microphone in my hand, I just look down at my hand. And as corny as it sounds, I look down at my hand and I look at my hand holding the mic with the WWE mic flag on it, and I think of everything that microphone always represented, even back when it had a WWF logo as a kid. And the reason that microphone represented as much as it did is because of Mean Gene Okerlund. I think for a lot of us that are of the same generation, Mean Gene was the voice that put all the pictures together in WWE, later in WCW, but really his work, and of course in AWA before that, but his work in WWE, WWF was what really put him on the map and helped put wrestling on the map. Mean Gene had a very rare talent in the sense that he had a name like that. He had a presence and a voice and an ability that made him a household name. But his goal was clearly always to get over whoever he was interviewing. He did what every good announcer should do, and that's to get the talent over that they're talking to. And he did it every single time. He did it from his backstage interview segments. He did it on the stage. There was a time when WWE's main TV, at least that I watched, was Superstars of Wrestling and Wrestling Challenge on Saturday and Sunday afternoon. It was the syndicated shows. And this was before big names, forget about main event level matches being on TV. The big names, the biggest names wouldn't even wrestle on TV. You wouldn't really see the champion of the world wrestling on an episode of WWF Superstars. You would see some of the other talent in action against preliminary guys, against extra talent, as it were. But you knew it was a main event show. You knew it was a can't-miss show when they announced that next week a star like Hulk Hogan or The Ultimate Warrior or Macho Man Randy Savage or the Legion of Doom even would be taking part in a special interview. And that meant that these stars were going to come out on stage and they were going to partake in an interview on that platform in front of the audience with Mean Gene Okerlund. And every time Mean Gene delivered, I mean, we all have our favorite moments. It was Mean Gene that welcomed Ric Flair in after he won the 1992 Royal Rumble. He had a man put out a cigarette so Ric Flair could let the world know that with a tear in his eye, this was the greatest moment in his career. He felt like a fixture in the WWF until he eventually left the WWF and went over to WCW, where I feel like he became most famous for plugging that hotline, advertising that hotline. But, you know, in WCW, he also was the guy doing interviews backstage and the guy doing interviews in front of the audience. Mean, woo! By God, Gene. Ric Flair. It just rolled off the tongue. It was something you looked forward to every single week. I don't know that anybody in that position will ever be looked at as more of a standard than Mean Gene Okerlund. I mean, Mean Gene is the quintessential wrestling interviewer. Before any of us were doing this, before, you know, it was it was Mean Gene Okerlund. And it was him, and it was a microphone, and they said, Gene, you've got Hulk Hogan. You got Macho Man Randy Savage. And the stuff that they would throw at Mean Gene, the stuff he would have to deal with Ultimate Warrior, Macho Man bringing out every prop that he could possibly find. My very dear, close, personal, longtime friend, Hulk Hogan. The things that they would yell at Gene, and you would watch him. Go through Mean Gene Okerlund interviews. He would, when these things didn't make sense, he would do everything humanly possible to make sense of what was going on. Go to WrestleMania 6, WrestleMania 7, and watch Mean Gene's interview with Jake the Snake Roberts. Brilliant. The stuff that he did with Bobby the Brain Heenan going back and forth. Of course, what about all the vignettes that he did on Coliseum Video? The stuff he did with the Bushwhackers, the Toys R Us commercials, everything. I mean, Mean Gene was as much of an icon as anybody could be. And at the end of the day, in the role that he was in backstage interview territory, Mean Gene Okerlund was simply and will always be the greatest of all time. And I don't even think you can argue that. And he did wrestling stuff, you know, up until he was gone, up until very, very recently. He's been doing stuff with WWE, whether it's home video stuff or other television stuff. I mean, wrestling was his life, and we were lucky to have gotten to share that life. So rest in peace to Mean Gene Okerlund. Really sad to see him go, but I'm glad that this week, and it should be every week, but this week specifically, we're celebrating the life that was Mean Gene Okerlund, because it should be a celebration. When you're the greatest of all time at what you do, you deserve to be celebrated. Speaking of the greatest of all time, how's that for a segue? My guest this week is a young man who thinks he already is the greatest of all time, according to some people. Maxwell Jacob Friedman, MJF. He's only been wrestling for like 3 years. That's it. But in that 3 years has made a tremendous amount of impact. If you have any sort of awareness of the independents, specifically the East Coast indies, but he has traveled throughout the country and I think throughout the world at this point. You know who MJF is. Look him up if you don't. He had the opening match on All In, which was a big, big deal. I think for All In, it was Joey Janela, who we've had on the podcast, and it was MJF, who really got the opportunity to shine in a pretty major way. And I've known MJF for quite some time. I knew him. He went to school at Creative Pro that's taught by Kurt Hawkins and Pat Buck. And he'd be at Wrestle Pro all the time from the time he was a student. And so, I'd watch him, and I don't remember a time thinking like, oh, this kid will get it someday. From the time I saw him wrestling, I was like, he's there. He's a wrestler. This is not a kid who is learning. This is a person who is a wrestler. And I think MJF believed that himself and took that forward and has just pushed it and pushed it and pushed it to the point where he had the opening match on the pay-per-view All In this year. He was on the Stone Cold Steve Austin podcast. He's held titles in CZW and MLW all over the place. And now he's in a position where I really think over the next year or two, the world's going to be his oyster. I see him as a high prospect for an organization like Ring of Honor, who needs to rebuild their group right now, their federation, as it were, their promotion, with the Elite leaving. MJF would be a great addition there. Impact, who is figuring out who they are right now. Even New Japan. I think having MJF as an American heel in New Japan could be tremendous. Let's not pretend that NXT isn't constantly bringing in new people and a place that could benefit from having MJF there. And of course, it goes without saying, after the guy had the performance of a lifetime, and a very short lifetime, as he's a very young man, at All In, that All Elite Wrestling is not a huge potential win. And the fact that it is about to exist is not a huge potential win for a guy like MJF. I wanted to start 2019 with a guest on the podcast that is all about future potential. I want today's show to be all about looking forward into 2019 and beyond. And as we look into 2019 and beyond, you cannot talk about wrestling without talking about MJF. So here he is on the podcast, on Not Sam Wrestling this week for the very first time, ladies and gentlemen. It's Maxwell Jacob Friedman, a.k.a. MJF.
The Not Sam Wrestling interview.
For the first time on Not Sam Wrestling, finally in the Not Sam studio, I am blessed, I would say.
Accurate.
Ladies and gentlemen, somebody who had one of the best 2018s that a person, especially in wrestling, could probably have. MJF is here. What's going on? Maxwell Jacob Friedman.
Yeah, bit of an understatement there, but I'll take it.
You think so?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Well, let's go over your 2018.
Please.
All In.
Yeah.
That's probably number one.
Sure.
Stone Cold Podcast. That's a huge.
I don't want to talk about that.
You don't
schmuck.
like
Steve. Let's not talk about Steve.
Well, you don't want to put over. Other
he doesn't
wrestlers.
deserve it.
I see.
Continue.
Okay.
I'm enjoying this list. This is a fun list.
I mean, watching you in MLW.
Sure.
CZW.
Sure.
Beyond. I mean, everywhere.
I mean, literally coast to coast, across the border and across the pond. I'm not going to lie to you, Sam.
Mm-hmm. Please don't.
When I was told that I was going to have to do this interview, I wasn't too happy about it.
Who told you were going to have to?
So you don't act like you weren't the one that talked to my publicist. We're both fully aware of what happened here.
Right.
And she came to me. She said, look, I need you to do this podcast. He's offering us a decent chunk of change for you to make an appearance. And
People don't know. A lot of wrestlers don't realize I'm paying for interviews. I wish you wouldn't blow me up like that.
Sorry. Let's face facts here. It's not like it's an awful lot of money. I'm kind of pretty much doing you a huge solid right now.
I appreciate it.
But so she confronted me. She said, I really need you to do this podcast. And I said, look, I've heard this bozo before. He walks up to people. He says, what's the haps?
That's true.
Not a real phrase. Completely idiotic. Kind of looks like a life-size troll doll. But then she goes, you know what? Maybe it's not a good idea because I heard a rumor. And I go, oh, okay. Now I'm intrigued. She goes, well, I heard that this man was asked by Kurt Hawkins and Zack Ryder to lend some money for a toy drive. And I said, please tell me he didn't give money to snot-nosed brats. I mean, that would disgust me. And she said, no, the issue is that he didn't.
That's true.
I said, I'll absolutely do this
good.
podcast.
That's good.
Because who wants to give handouts like that to poor children?
Right.
They don't deserve it. And work for your money, Sam. Work for it.
And first of all, that's true.
Yeah.
And second of all, for the record, Kurt Hawkins and Zack Ryder, they said on their podcast, hey, we're doing a charity thing.
Sure.
And then after it was over, they were like, hey, we asked Sam and he didn't give us anything. And I was like, I got nothing to do with you guys.
Look, Who? Okay, first of all,
Again, not trying to put over.
No. They don't look. The Majors Brothers, what is it? Is that what it's called?
The
Am I
Major
saying it
Brothers,
right?
yeah.
Yeah, Paget.
That's it.
It's a decent little product, but at the end of the day, to ask somebody to take money out of their pocket
Right.
and give it to somebody you don't even know because what? They don't have toys for Christmas?
Right.
Who cares?
That's actually a
Who
good
cares?
point.
Is it your problem?
No,
I know
no,
it's not
no.
my problem.
It's certainly not my problem.
So that's why I was excited to come here because me and you were one and the same, Sam.
Yeah,
I
I think that's good. But I'll probably have to start asking you to do a lot of my talking for me. You made
no.
that. I feel like you made that sound better than I could have.
Really?
I think so.
I mean, look, I'm always here to defend, but once again, that also comes with a fee. And if you'd like to talk to my publicist after this is all said and done.
I kind of blew the whole 2019 Not Sam budget on this already.
This interview.
It's done.
I figured.
Yeah.
I figured.
Yeah. Well, look, MJF, do you have a highlight? Are you the type that goes back and looks at a year and goes like, yeah, that was the highlight, or that's what I reflect upon? Or do you just constantly move forward?
It's hard to take a step back when you have a rocket pack just strapped on you.
see.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I do.
Just being able to look back with all the intensity, it's a struggle. It's a struggle for sure. But when I do have the time, and I don't have much time, Sam, as you know, I'm a very busy human being.
Super busy.
But when I do have the time to look back, I think to myself, okay, MJF, you are quite possibly... let's scratch that. I'm
Don't
being
be
humble.
modest.
I'm honestly,
Yeah.
I am. I'm
Yeah.
being very modest. You are the youngest and fastest rising star in professional wrestling today. I mean, going into this year, 2019, it's very reminiscent of when I was just getting out of high school when I played football. Not that was all that long ago, but I'm 22. Just in case you didn't know. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's younger than Leo Rush.
The bottom line was I had a lot of offers and a lot of scholarships thrown my way, and I could have went anywhere I really wanted to go. I had broken pretty much every single tackling record there was, not just in my school, but in all of Long Island. And I find myself in that exact situation now. Everybody's asking on social media, on all these platforms, MJF, he's been everywhere. What is he going to do next? There's all these different promotions that are potentially offering him contracts. You know, I'm saying potentially. And there's so many different avenues I can go, and everybody wants to know what I'm going to do.
Yeah.
And the news flash is it's none of your business. But you will most certainly find out. Because that's just how it works, right?
Yeah,
You're just going to see me pop up somewhere and you're going to go, oh, okay. But
That's true. That's the way it worked for All In. I didn't know you were going to be on All In, and then all of a
Absolutely.
sudden there you are on pay-per-view.
yeah, that's how I operate. You know, a lot of people, they don't understand the significance of mystique. And with mystique comes silence. If I go
see.
around and I go, I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that, and you better believe this is happening next. No, that's not as exciting as when I pop up. Because I could literally pop up anywhere, in any company, on any part of the planet.
Uh-huh. So you're saying what you're known for is not talking?
Well, now hold on a second. Not talking and not giving away my next move.
I see.
I move in silence, but once I get to that destination, yeah, I'm going to be screaming about it at the top of the rooftops.
I see.
Do you understand what I'm saying?
100%.
A lot of
100%.
people, they like to go, this is happening, that thing, one and the other. I don't do that until it happens. And once it does happen, yeah, I'm going to talk about it because
Right.
I'm amazing at what I do.
Now let me ask you. You're a young man, as you just said, 22 years old. That's
Yep.
crazy to be in the position that you're in at your age. You trained at did you train at, was it Creative Pro when you trained there?
Yeah, Creative Pro Wrestling with Pat Buck and Kurt Hawkins.
Right. So, and that was, you're the first big star, or you're the biggest star, I would say,
I mean, yeah,
to come out of Creative Pro for sure.
landslide. But,
Right.
you know, we don't want
Right.
to disrespect the rest of the people
Of
that
course
go
not.
there.
Of course not.
I will tell you this, Creative Pro Wrestling, if you live in the metropolitan area, there is no other option to go as far as wrestling schools go. I would not be in the position I'm in today without Creative Pro. And that's a fact. Granted, did I have this God-given talent to grab a microphone and make people not just go to the edge of their chair, but to fall off of it and break their ass? Yes, I already had that. But I needed to understand how to acquire the skill bell to bell, which now everybody can obviously admit and agree that I'm one of the best, most well-rounded professional athletes in the sport today. And honestly, you have to give it up to Kurt Hawkins and Pat Buck at the Creative Pro Wrestling Academy.
Absolutely. I will say, until I'm blue in the face, Kurt Hawkins is a lousy action figure collector, but a great pro wrestler and trainer.
I don't collect children's toys, but
Right.
I'll take your word for it.
Right. You keep your money. You buy things like cars, expensive clothes,
Sure.
things like that, giant houses.
Sure.
I get that.
If I want to get risky, maybe a penny stock, but really not much more than that.
Right.
Sure.
That's your idea of a wild time.
I mean, that's a fun night out, if you ask me. I don't know about you.
I see. So how long are you at Create a Pro before you start realizing that the people at Create a Pro start realizing, like, wow, this is moving really fast for this kid?
I mean, probably right away. I mean, I really took to it like a fish takes to water.
And
it
how
really
old are
wasn't
you
an
when you
issue
started?
For me. I started when I was 19.
Again, we're talking 3 years ago.
Sure. I've been wrestling now for 3 years.
And that's like no time based on what you've accomplished.
Yeah, but at the same time, it's a no-brainer. I mean, look at me, listen to me talk, watch me wrestle.
Right.
And that's exactly what happened when I stepped through the hallowed halls of CAP. It became very apparent to both of my trainers that God put me on this planet for one particular reason, and it was to become a professional wrestler.
So when you're training like that and you start advancing quickly, how do the other students in class react to that? Like when they go, does this make them insecure? Are they just like, cool, we're glad to have somebody good in class? Like what's the vibe like?
Look, jealousy is going to happen organically.
Yeah.
Did I have a Lambo or two keyed because I'd tell people I was clearly the best in my class? Maybe.
You told them that.
Look, do I look like a liar to you, Sam?
No,
Am I
no,
somebody
no.
who would ever lie or go by? No, I'm always very upfront and very honest. And that's what I would do. So look, at first it was a bit of a bumpy ride, but once they realize there's really nothing you can do about it,
right,
you kind of just grin and bear it.
So does that happen where they go, because when you meet somebody who's, I was going to say with an ego, but I'll say respectfully, who's confident in their abilities, especially at a young age.
Yeah, I hate that word ego. I just never quite understood it.
Right.
If you're good, you're good. It's just that simple.
Right. But when you meet somebody who's confident in their abilities at a very young age, there are people, especially if you're peers with that person, waiting for them to fall on their face. I don't want to be around that person, almost wanting to sabotage that person.
Yeah, the issue
right?
is I have perfect balance. I'm incapable of falling down.
Well, that's the issue, is that eventually, if the skill starts to back up all these statements being made, you're kind of screwed.
Yeah.
Because there's always going to be people, and I think that's where ego kicks in, is the people that show up and they start doing all the talking, but they don't have perfect balance.
No,
and
can't
they do
back it
fall
up.
on their face. And I'm sure you've seen that before.
It's sad.
Yeah.
It's sad. It truly is.
Because you don't relate to that.
And I never could.
Right.
I mean, I was literally born and bred just to be better than everyone else. And that's not me like attacking you, the viewer, or the listener. It's just straight facts.
I see. So you played football in high school.
Yes, I did.
Did you think that you were going to do that professionally?
What had occurred was I had been offered all these pretty much full rides. I had went to a school which legally I cannot name.
Why not?
Unfortunately, what had occurred was I had went to the coach and I said, this isn't for me. And he well, we're thinking about starting you as a freshman. This is a very big deal. Don't you understand? And internally, I knew what I had to do. And what I had to do is professional wrestling, because I grew up watching and idolizing guys like Ric Flair, Roddy Piper, Tully Blanchard, Hot Stuff Eddie Gilbert. The list goes on and on.
Which is, by the way, an amazing list for somebody your age.
Sure, absolutely.
You know what I mean? Most 22-year-olds are not sitting there with Hot Stuff Eddie Gilbert tapes.
We'll get to the issue with people of my generation later on.
Oh, good.
And what occurred was the coach wasn't too happy. So he said, well, we can't allow that. And in walked a 6'7", most likely, offensive lineman. Let's just call him Sal, because obviously I can't legally say his name. And he followed me around everywhere. And eventually what it come to was I had to wait at very late. We're talking like incredibly late. He finally went to sleep, and he followed me for 2 days straight, wherever I went. Bathroom, locker room, if I was going to go hang out with a girl, he followed me everywhere. So I just waited. I got in my car, and I drove all the way home, got out of my car. I looked at both of my parents, and I said, hey, I'm going to be a professional wrestler. Obviously, both their responses as Jewish parents wasn't, oh, great.
Right.
That's fantastic.
Right. Because you're not going to them, because the beauty of football is that you don't have to convince your parents I'm going to be a pro football player. You're going, I'm going to play football, but in their minds, you're getting a free education.
Getting a free education, precisely. Right. So now I was trading getting a free education, according to my mother, to get hit in the head with steel chairs and barbed wire, what have you. But I think it became very apparent to them, just like it became very apparent to anybody else who was in my life when I started training, that they had nothing to worry about.
Because you're taking it very, very seriously from the jump.
Absolutely, incredibly seriously.
And you had to, right? Because there's that thing about like having nothing to lose is not always a great thing. Like when you've gotten yourself to the point where you have a lot to lose, in the sense that you have your entire pride to lose. Here's what happens. If you fail at wrestling, you've made the stupidest decision in your life. If you don't fail at wrestling, you've got this amazing story of knowing that you were bred to succeed.
Absolutely.
And so you've got no choice but to succeed. Otherwise, you're a fool.
Well, let's not like act that I'm like some blue collar schmuck that doesn't have money in the back, just in case this doesn't all go.
Oh, good.
Go
okay.
right.
Okay.
But yeah, you could say I'm an American hero. You can say I'm living the American dream and following it. Yeah,
an American hero with a trust fund.
Absolutely.
See.
You know what? I couldn't have put it better myself, Sam. I'm liking you. I'm liking you.
Good.
You're not an attractive man.
Okay, you didn't
by
need
any
to
means,
bring that up.
But I like you.
Yeah, we didn't need to for sure go there. But so how far into training did you feel like I'm ready to start wrestling? Because really, there are people who spend 3 years training before they have any real matches of note.
Which is very accurate. There are a lot of guys that I have come around on the independent level, even when I do TV, where they said, we didn't even have our first match until we were 2 years, 3 years in. I had my first match when I was 3 months in. And it was amazing.
Great match.
So, dude, it was amazing. Honestly, if we want to get serious, I would look in this camera and say my first match is probably better than most people's, like, 200.
Who was the match with?
I was in a tag team match. It was me, and at the time I was tagging with a guy by the name of Bear Bronson.
Okay.
And we were tagging against 2 students who quit, because that's what happens in wrestling. And it was a great match. And then like 2 months went by, and they were just like, wrestling's hard, and they quit.
But that's evidence that it's not like you were in this match with somebody that was able to carry you through a great match.
No,
Right,
it was all very, very, very new students. Yeah.
Wow.
Which is, that to me is really intelligent by Hawkins and Pat, because if you throw somebody in there with somebody who's this amazing talent like myself, and they're just, I'm not going to say helping you succeed, because at the end of the day, we're all trying to win. We're all trying to make money.
Of course.
But still, you might be taking it easier on them because you know they're new to the sport, and you're looking to beat them, but you're not looking to murder them. But when you throw somebody into the trenches, into the big deep blue without, what the heck is that thing called?
Safety net?
I don't. Is that what it's called?
For
water, a safety net? No, you put on this big jacket thing.
Look, I'm not a scuba diver. Remember, I'm the last professional broadcaster.
Yeah, honestly, Sam, you and I both. I've never gone scuba diving.
Neither. For what?
I don't get it.
We have hard land to walk
now,
on.
Skiing and luge.
That's your thing?
That's another thing.
You like that? You like
That's
winter
another
sports?
thing.
I see.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But back to the topic at hand.
Yeah.
When you throw somebody in that scenario, they only have 2 options. You can swim. You could swim elegantly, or you could drown and die. And I swam like an Olympic gold medalist. You know? And some people just don't do that when they dive deep in.
Right. You just happen to be able to have that skill.
100%.
So when do you start leaving training and going, okay, I'm a full-time wrestler now?
See, it was interesting for me. Year 1, while a lot of stuff did happen in my first year of wrestling, it was a lot of me getting in my car and driving to these shows, which is a joke, because I didn't want to offend anybody, so I didn't take my Traveler jet. I got in these cars, I drove to these shows, and I showed face. And I would help around as much as I possibly could. Granted, I would hold a broom and like pretend I was sweeping.
But you're not gonna.
To the naked eye, it looks like I'm doing something, Sam.
But you're not bred for manual labor.
Jesus Christ, no.
It's not where you come from.
No.
Right.
No.
Right.
Does it look like I am, Sam?
No.
Please
You
don't
look
offend
fantastic.
me.
You pulled up in your Beamer. I mean, it was amazing.
And what would happen is they'd give me an opportunity, and I would go in there and I would kill it, and then they'd say, okay, we're going to use this guy on a regular basis. That happened in a ton of different promotions in the Northeast, and then it floated over to the Midwest, and now it's pretty much floated over everywhere.
Right. So it was just the reputation built very, very quickly.
Yes.
Wow. And at what point did your parents start to go, okay, because it's one thing for parents to say, he's good at this, he's taking it seriously. It's another thing for parents to go, he could make a living doing this. This is a life that he could do. Have they gotten there yet?
Well, now I am making a living off of it.
Right.
So now they don't have an issue with it at all. Yeah.
Right.
They're completely on board, which is pretty crazy. I mean, I'd have to give a shout out to my parents, they raised an amazing kid, obviously.
Right, I was just thinking
But
that.
also, the support that I have, a lot of people, and again, this is something that jealousy might come behind of, a lot of people don't have that support system. A lot of people don't have two parents that look, were they hesitant? Absolutely. I think anybody's parents would have been, especially somebody who grew up the way I did. But they're now backing me 110%. They want to see me succeed, and they love the fact that I'm loving what I'm doing. And it's really cool to have that support system.
Yeah, and I would imagine seeing you on pay-per-view was kind of...
Well, my parents were in the building for
They
all.
were?
Yes.
And
Yes.
so when they see you doing that, is that... Clearly they haven't seen you because you haven't done anything on that scale.
Sure.
But when you're able... Tell me about that scale. When you go out there, you've had all this training, as it were, and by training I don't mean school, I mean all the matches that you've had. But they've all had crowds of various sizes, but nothing remotely comparable to 10,000, right?
Sure.
10,000. What would you say is your biggest crowd you've performed in front of before 10,000?
Oh, man. I don't know. I mean, I had done Janela Spring Break prior to that, and I had
So it's a what,
MLW
2,000,
shows.
3,000?
Yeah, 2, 3.
Okay.
Maybe like there's some Wrestle Pro shows that legitimately, if you pack out that Rawway Rec Center, it's a lot of people as well.
Yeah.
I had done big shows, but to that magnitude, it was interesting sitting in the locker room with guys who have been wrestling 10, 12, 15 years at All In, and they were saying, holy shit, this is a lot of people. And I'm sitting there like, okay. So
You didn't really think about it.
I don't know if I was trying not to think about it. All I was concerned with was showing the world who MJF is and what MJF's all about.
Now, do they, at All In, are they talking to you about where cameras are and playing to this camera and that camera? Like, is that something you're aware of?
I had one discussion, and it was with Cody Rhodes. And I had walked up to him. This was before the match. I said, is there anything you would like from me, specifically? And he said, I brought you here for a reason. And that was the conversation. He said, just stick to the amount of time that is allotted. If you go over the time, I don't care. I'll have the ref ring the... You know what I mean?
Right.
But that was a speech that was given to anybody.
Right.
And after the match was over, I walk up to Cody. I go, did you see it? He stopped me again. He goes, brought you here for a reason. So I was like, okay. And it's crazy that somebody like him and somebody like the Bucks were willing to give me that opportunity, and B, had that trust in me, considering I've only been doing this for 3 years, which is telling, but it's also telling of their character,
right,
and them as human beings. That opportunity meant a lot to me, but that opportunity was earned, and I think that a lot of people might struggle with that, but I was like killing my... I have literally wrestled nearly every single top tier independent promotion in the world. US now, UK, Canada. I've been all over the place. But like the most goosebumps I ever had, because the second my music hit, my match wasn't announced, the second my music hit, and the second they showed the Burberry Tron with MJF on it, they rained down boos.
Right.
Rained them down. They knew damn well who I was.
Well, that's what, and I was watching, and we did a post show. I was watching with Pat Buck, and we were watching at home, and I pointed out to Pat, whatever, we agreed that what was great about that is that even 3 years in, you were able to communicate to not just the audience, some of whom knew you, some of you did not know who you were, but the audience at home, and I would assume the audience at home, a lot didn't know who you were. But immediately we know who's the good guy, who's the bad guy, what's the story being told. Like, we know...
I don't think I'm a bad guy, Sam. But...
I don't think so either.
Okay.
But we understood why there was an attraction to booing you.
Absolutely. And that was my thing. I was like, what is going to happen when my music plays? Are they going to know? And there was a rain of boos before I go through the curtain. And once I went through the curtain, for the people who might not have been aware, I got them to understand what I'm all about real quick.
Right.
Real quick. And that's something I've always took great pride in. And back to the generational thing, I think there's this weird struggle now where I can, if you walk up to me and you say, MJF, what are you all about? I'm going to say, you know what I'm all about? I'm all about being better than you. That's it.
Instantly.
If I walk up to somebody in my age group, my demographic, my experience level, and I say, what are you all about? They're not going to have an answer. They don't know who they are yet. Which, you know what? Cool. You know, it's wrestling is supposed to be a carnival act. You're supposed to have every single flavor of ice cream, and it's awesome. But if every single match is super kicks, which, by the way, why are you doing that? Because the Young Bucks are already doing it. They're doing it better than you.
You're right.
If every single match is a Canadian destroyer, why are you doing that? Petey Williams is
already doing it.
You know, if every single match is cutters, you know, I've heard Randy Orton. That was a pretty good cutter. I don't know if you've heard of the guy.
Yeah. He's great.
It gets boring.
Right.
And that's why.
And it's almost like you're cheering for the move, right? Like when a young guy throws a super kick, it's almost like if you're cheering for the Young Bucks.
Sure.
When a young guy throws a cutter, you're cheering for the Randy Orton's move.
If a chop is thrown, what do you hear?
Woo.
You hear woo.
Right.
You don't hear go, guy who just threw that chop.
Right.
You hear woo.
Right.
You need, and I don't understand why nobody understands this. I'm one of a kind. I'm a gem.
You are.
I'm not trying to be anybody.
Right.
And I think everybody should try to patent themselves after that. Everybody should be their self, turned up to 100. I hate to quote Steven. I hate Steven. But that is a quote he said, and it's completely accurate to me. And that is something I pride myself in. I'm not going out there to entertain you. Allow me to make that very clear.
Wow.
I don't care what you think.
Wow.
I really don't care. All I care about is winning and making my money. I'm not going out there to be Circus Soleil. I'm going out there to win a match.
Right.
And that's what I loved about guys like I mentioned earlier, Piper, Flair, Tully. I mean, I can go on and on. Chris Candido. There's so many people who have influenced me.
So when did you start watching wrestling?
Oh man, the first match in full I ever saw. The first blip I saw was like a SmackDown show, I think, and I saw like Kane, kind of. And this is me trying to remember. I was like 6 or 7, right? But then after that, I was so enamored by it, and my uncle had put it on the TV when we were over his house for dinner. Alan Weissman, how are you doing? And I said, I grabbed him, and I'm a small, young man at this point. I grabbed him. I said, "What was that? Because I want more of it." And he said, "That's wrestling." And I said, "Oh." And I ran up to my dad and I said, "We got to go to Hollywood Video like right now." And my dad was like, "We're kind of eating here,
Right.
Max. So like, hold this one off,
Right.
okay, Maxwell?" I was like, "Whatever, Dad." And then I went off. I had my caviar and I'm not going to say what else I had. I don't want to offend everybody with what I'm eating.
But you did have caviar.
Yeah. And some steak. You know what? Should I just list off everything that was there? There was some garlic mash and some really solid cream spinach. And all right.
And this is just an average night.
I mean, yeah.
Okay.
Come on.
It's impressive.
Yeah. That's how the Friedmans do it.
Right.
And the next day, my dad drove me to Hollywood Video. I picked up this DVD, and there was this scary-looking zombie man on the cover of it, which I would later turn out to be The Undertaker. I had no idea who it was.
At least it wasn't the ECW zombie.
Sure.
Could have been him.
That very well. It could have been him. Very famous, that guy.
Yeah.
Almost, some might say almost as famous as The Undertaker.
I think so.
Some.
I've got all the DVDs with ECW zombie on the cover.
There you go.
Yeah.
Man of many matches. So I pop in this little DVD disc tape, and I'm like, okay. I look at the back. There's a menu, and it says Hell in a Cell match. I go, that sounds interesting. So the first match I ever watched in full was Undertaker versus Mankind in the Hell in a Cell. So right off the bat, I'm like, this is the most insane thing I've ever seen.
Right.
Both these men are crazy.
By the way, for a guy that would end up wrestling in CZW,
Sure,
kind of fitting, right?
Absolutely. And honestly, I remember going into my match with Joey Janela and looking at that top, because we had pretty much fallen off the top of the building. There was I forget how you would even phrase this. You have the bottom floor, and I would just call it the second floor, whatever.
Like a balcony?
Balcony, exactly.
Yeah.
And I looked at that and I said,
The New Jack position.
Yeah. I said, I'm going to throw Joey Janela off this balcony because I hate him and his brain's fried and I want him dead.
Right.
And
he's been in here in the studio, by the way. He sat in that chair.
I'm sorry, you should probably clean this chair.
Okay.
But unfortunately, it didn't work out that way. We both fell down at the same time, which is, but I came out unscathed, thank God, and I won the match. Duh. But, there's obviously things in wrestling that you see at a young age that is going to make you like enamored by it. And that match, it totally hooked me in. And then after that, I knew I was going to be a fan for life. And the moment I knew I wanted to be a professional wrestler, I was at Madison Square Garden. It was the very first Elimination Chamber.
Survivor Series.
Yeah.
The Elimination Chamber match at Survivor Series.
Survivor
the one
Series.
that
Do you know
Sean
what
won.
year that was?
I'd like to say 2000. It was the first half of the first decade of the 2000s for sure. Maybe 2003 or 2.
Yeah. I just remember Shawn Michaels with the little Dutch boy haircut and the brown tights.
Yes.
Hard to forget.
Yes.
And he wins the match.
With cowboy boots, right?
Dude.
Yeah.
Hits the pose. And I look to my left and I look to my right, and everybody's standing, and everybody's clapping, and everybody's freaking out. And I remember tugging my dad, and I look at him, I'm going to go, I'm going to do that. And he laughed. He was like, okay. I was like, all right. And I knew deep down after that, I was like, I can do that. I want to be able to make everyone in a room stare at me and not want to look at anything else. And unlike everybody else in the scene today, you'll see matches, people will be on their phones. That doesn't happen during an MJF match.
Right.
It just won't happen.
Right.
And that's something I take pride in.
That's interesting because about probably 8 years before that Survivor Series, it was probably Survivor Series 2002, so maybe 6 years before that, at Survivor Series 1996, I was there watching Shawn Michaels lose the WWE Championship to Psycho Sid.
Yep.
But I was sitting next to my dad, dressed head to toe as Goldust, and my dad was just sitting there going like, I don't know what
am I doing here?
What am I doing?
Rest assured, my incredibly affluent father had no idea what he was doing here either.
Right.
So you are not alone, Sam. You are not alone.
We got so much more with MJF to get to, but I need to tell you about SeatGeek. You guys hear about SeatGeek all the time here on Not Sam Wrestling. One of my absolute favorite sponsors because what they do applies to all of us. They make it easier for us to see the things that we want to see. You all want to go to the wrestling shows. You want to see guys like MJF live and in the flesh. You want to go to NXT Phoenix, NXT TakeOver Phoenix. You want to go to the Royal Rumble. You want to go to all these shows, but finding tickets online is next to impossible. You never know if they're real. You never know where they are. You never know if you're getting the best deal. That's why SeatGeek is the way to go. They pull millions of tickets into one place, so you can easily find the seats that you want for a price that you're willing to pay. Every purchase is fully guaranteed, which means you can shop with confidence on SeatGeek. And when you make SeatGeek your go-to ticket source, you can get tickets to everything. Sports, concerts, comedy, theater, whatever you want. I've got the app on my phone. It's amazing. It knows where I am. It tells me all the events that are happening nearby. I click to whatever one I want to go to, or I search one that's not nearby me. A seating chart comes up. They show me all the tickets that are available. They give me the value, green, yellow, red. I can sit up front. I can sit way back. I can get the best deal, whatever I want to do. SeatGeek makes it easy, and I'm about to make it even easier for you. $10 off. How does that sound? Yes. If you're listening to Not Sam Wrestling right now, you're getting $10 off your first SeatGeek purchase. All you have to do is download the SeatGeek app and enter promo code SAM today. That's promo code SAM for $10 off your first SeatGeek purchase. SeatGeek, life's an event. We have the tickets. Back to MJF. But how does one go from, okay, it's the 2000s, you know, you're coming in at a weird time because I was a tape trader, and I know that that's right when tape trading started to kind of go away because digital was coming in, DVD was coming in, it was replaced really quickly by YouTube. How does one at your age go from like late 90s, early 2000s, I'm just getting on board with this, figuring out who everybody is, to I know the kind of history that you just listed? Like at what point do you start devouring content? Where do you get the content? What is it?
I just remember I was in this great abyss of YouTube, which happens to everybody.
Yeah.
And I'm watching, stuff of the times, and then out of nowhere, I see like this photograph of a dude in a kilt, and he's sitting down on a couch, and his feet are up on the stool. And I'm like, who is that guy? And I clicked on it, and I'm sorry, I don't want to
Go
curse.
ahead.
This guy's chewing gum, and he's being incredibly ridiculously rude, and there's a British guy next to him, and he keeps trying to talk to him, and he's, shut up, Yeah. And there's another guy who seems like it might be his boss, and he's trying to talk to him. He's telling the other guy it was all about him. And I was like, oh my God, this is getting me riled up.
Right.
Like, I want to punch this guy in the face.
Right. And I like that feeling.
It's awesome.
Right.
It's awesome.
Right.
And I was like, I want to do that.
Because you recognized immediately you went one step beyond your feeling of I want to punch this guy in the face to, oh my God, that guy just did something that makes me want to punch him in the face.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
Then that's a job. That's a thing that people do.
That's not just a job. That's my high.
Right.
People, if they,
right.
If you want to do your thing, man, do whatever gets you going, do your thing. You know what gets me going? I love when I hear stories, and first of all, I've had fans swing on me, which is hysterical because you're all very small and frail compared to me, but I've had fans swing on me.
You're a professional wrestler.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But also, I love the idea that there's a guy coming to the show, and he's looking at his friend, he's going, this stuff's fake. I don't care about this. This is BS. Mm-hmm. Sitting down, he doesn't care about any of the matches. He's on his phone the whole entire night. And then I come out, and I grab a microphone. And this guy wants to kill me now. Mm-hmm. This is real to him now, as it should be, because I'm no joke. I'm not fake. I'm genuine. Nobody's more genuine than me. Very clearly.
Yeah.
And this guy wants to hit me so bad, and he goes home, he gets in his car, he gets in his bed, and he's going, I'm going to go to that show again, and I want to see this guy get beat so bad. And then he goes again, and he tells his friend, all these other guys are BSing. That guy's legit, and I want that guy dead. That is what I love about professional wrestling, and I wish more people loved that about professional wrestling. Yeah. I watch Memphis and Global Force and AWA, and like that's what I watch off the network. Like the WWE product right now is like, yo, anyone who sits on this chair and looks at you and is like WWE, like, okay, dude, it's right now, currently present day. That's the top product.
Yeah, 100%.
Right?
100%.
So, but for me, I always prefer just watching that old school wrestling.
Which is interesting because, like, I get that for me and people of my generation because part of it is a nostalgia. It's like, this is what we grew up with, so I'm going to turn on Tuesday Night Titans because I remember when I was a little kid, Tuesday Night Titans was on. But for you, who Tuesday Night Titans has been off the air over 10 years before you're even born.
Sure.
The fact that you go back and you're like, no, this is my stuff too.
Yeah.
Kind of amazing.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a kind of amazing guy, Sam.
I guess so.
What do you expect?
I guess so. So you went, well, do you know why you were the guy that the guys at All In selected? Other than the fact that you're very, very good. I mean, just the idea that like most of the people at All In, you could go, well, either that's somebody that is part of this thing, right? Somebody that they work with, somebody that creatively they collaborate with, they wrestle with, whatever, or it's one of the best non-WWE wrestlers in the world. Clearly, they're going to be at All In, sure. And you're the one who's like, you get the one spot for a young guy, right? I mean, there wasn't any other.
Me. It was me, and I guess you can count Marco if you count that.
Sure. But Marco, even like we know, I think you know what Marco was like. He had his match with Janela at Janela's show, and it was like, whoa, who's this? Who's this guy that looks like a little kid? That's amazing.
Who's this frail little boy?
Right.
Everybody wanted to know who the frail little boy was.
Exactly.
Yes. And now the frail little boy's leg's broken.
Well, that's what happened.
Yeah, because he was a frail little boy. Marco, if you're listening to this, don't get hot. It's the truth. You're very tiny.
Okay.
But
well, he's invited to respond in any.
Well, I would love him to. I would love him to. I wrestled Marco before he got injured, actually. Yeah, and I absolutely beat him to it.
Did you mop the floor with him?
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Oh God,
yeah.
Sam. He's an infant.
I see.
He's a small little boy.
I see. I guess that'll do it.
If he came out through the curtain with a lollipop, you would be confused and you would go, "Whose child is this?"
That's true.
That's Marco.
That's true.
But to answer your question,
right.
I was at a show in Canada. Honestly, the number one promotion in Canada, in my opinion, is Alpha One.
Okay.
And I was at that show, and Cody Rhodes was on the show. And I suppose Cody must have watched my match. And after that, he had just stayed in touch with me randomly or sporadically. And one day through DM on Twitter, of all things,
go for it.
He was like, "Hey, are you busy on this date?"
And you're like looking at the calendar going like,
oh, that date? Yeah. I got a lot of things going on, Cody. Don't know if I can. No, yeah, I'm available.
Yeah.
And that's how it went down. Cody after the show on JR's podcast, which also meant a lot to me, because he has been a mentor to me. On the podcast, he said, if there was one person that impressed me the most, it was MJF, and that meant the world to me. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm sure I impressed pretty much everybody else, but
I was impressed.
I don't really care about everybody else's opinion. There's a handful of people's opinions I care about. He's one of them.
Right.
And that meant a lot, and it also meant a lot that before the show even happened, he said I reminded him of a younger him on one of those the All Elite videos. Or no, it was Cody went off. He had his own thing. It was what was Cody's?
Right.
Cody's
That they
show
were
on
doing
YouTube.
with Dave Lagana, right?
Yes. And I was like, all right, here we go. And ever since then, it was honestly, it was crazy before that with the bookings, but after that, it was totally gangbusters.
So when you start doing CZW pretty early in your career,
Yes.
Did you ever? I mean, first of all, how familiar were you with deathmatch wrestling? Because for me, I'm a teenager in the late '90s, early 2000s. I mean, I had the first 3 CZW VHS tapes from the website. I watched all the Japanese stuff, so I grew up when kind of deathmatch wrestling got that boom.
Sure.
How familiar with it were you?
I hated it.
You did.
Hated deathmatch wrestling. I, especially being a fan of the old school way.
Right.
It's disgusting to me, and I still hate it. The Undertaker and Mankind match to me was different. There was a story truly being told. This man had to overcome every single odd imaginable, and he still kept getting up to his feet by some grace of God. He was a madman.
Right.
But I could comprehend everything that was going on, and I could sink my teeth into it, and it even made a guy like me, as despicable as I am, kind of rooting for Mankind.
Right.
Kind of rooting for him a little bit. Not going to say more than Undertaker, because I do enjoy watching people get beat up, especially bigger, thicker people.
You like that?
Oh my God, yeah.
But it becomes impossible to not cheer for this guy.
Exactly.
Right.
But a lot of stuff I've seen from deathmatch wrestling, and not all of it. There are some people who have mastered that craft.
Sure.
But unfortunately, it put a sour taste in my mouth before I got involved in wrestling, because it would just be guys hitting each other over the head with light tubes for like no earthly reason, and tombstones off like the top of the ladder through like 3 tables on fire, and I'm just like, okay.
Right.
Yeah.
And I mean, and you saw that a lot in the wake of ECW. It's
Sure.
like XPW shows up, and then people start going like, what if we just take the hardest of hardcore that ECW had and just do it every show?
Exactly.
And you're going, well, you can't.
And I still hate CZW. I hate everything about CZW. The fact that I had to hold that title, I only came there because I wanted to help them.
Yeah.
They needed fixing.
I see.
The place was in complete turmoil.
Right.
I remember walking up to Triple Ten G-Day Hyde, and I said, look, Lariat God, this company's gross. Everyone in here looks like they have HEP.
Wow.
And we need to clean this place up a little bit.
Yeah.
How about we put somebody on your roster that when you put on a poster, people aren't going to gag?
Oh.
You know what I mean?
That was the pitch?
That's all I needed to say.
Okay.
And DJ's response was, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And it was honestly after that is how I got associated with CZW. I was never truly a big fan of the product.
I see.
I'm a fan of me when I was in the product.
You like that? Obviously. Right.
Yeah.
Are there any, what was the most brutal thing that you did over there? Was it the Janela
It had
jump
to have
off
been
the
the
balcony?
Janela match, and they cornered me and offered me money that nobody would ever say no to do Cage of Death. And I was about to do Cage of Death against Ricky Shane Page, a guy who I hate, but I will give credit to and say he might be one of the most underrated independent wrestlers on the scene going today.
But you don't like him.
No. He's fat.
Right.
But he's okay
Right.
at wrestling.
But
He's fat.
I see.
But what occurred was I had wrestled a match with Sami Callihan at AAW, and I broke my elbow. So I could not do that matchup. Thank God.
You don't sit there going like, oh,
I don't think they're going,
Cage of Death.
Oh no, rats. You know what I mean?
You don't go Cage of Death. I hope I rotate back there because that's the one thing in my career that I didn't get to do.
Yeah, and as I was in a brace at home watching Cage of Death, it was Mance Warner versus Ricky Shane Page. I was sipping on wine, just smiling ear to ear because I was not involved, but I got to enjoy it. And I can assure you the matchup that Mance Warner and Ricky Shane Page had at Cage of Death was, I'm sure fans would appreciate that one more than what they would have got from me, because what you would have got from me was calculated, intelligent decisions. If somebody was running at me with barbed wire, I would move out of the way.
Right.
If somebody set up glass in a corner, I would kick it and break it. If somebody
you break it with your foot.
Yes.
Yeah.
What am I, an idiot? If somebody went to the top of the cage and tried to jump on me, what would I do, Sam?
Roll out the way.
Yes. You are much smarter than you'd look. I'd roll out of the way.
Yeah.
So
I just love the strategy of just somebody sets up the glass, you just break it.
break it.
Yeah.
What? I never understood. Just
Right.
stand up, kick the glass,
Stop it.
just stomp it out.
Right.
Well, now what, idiot?
Right.
You know?
Right. That makes way more sense
But
than
I
just
digress.
falling through it. No, I mean,
Yes.
at least you go in with strategy. You know?
100%.
At least you go in with strategy. So when do you have any 2019 goals? Do you sit there and go, well, we look at the landscape, and I would say Ring of Honor is in a space where they're rebuilding in the sense that, you know, the Elite and the Bullet Club are not going to be there anymore.
Sure.
You're looking at Impact Wrestling that's completely rebranding themselves, and I think still in that process of figuring out who and what they are in I think a good way.
Sure.
Obviously, All Elite Wrestling busts onto the scene this week, and then there's always, NXT and WWE.
Sure.
Doing what they do pretty well still.
Heard of them.
So,
Here's my thing. I feel like the prettiest girl at the ball.
right. You also have a unique opportunity, right? It feels to me like now more so than ever,
It's up to me.
even though there's not like the big WWE or WCW, blah, 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 smaller organizations are signing people to exclusive deals, whether it's fully exclusive or just exclusive in the States or whatever it is. There's a lot more exclusivity going on in promotions than ever before, which isn't necessarily a good thing in the sense that you right now get to go and wrestle all over the place, right?
Sure.
And get better every time. And maybe being locked down to a single organization wouldn't be the best thing to do at 22, right?
You have no idea what I'm going to do, but as I said, every day I feel like the prettiest girl at the ball as I ascend into the early stages of 2019. All of these companies are very much so interested in certain people.
I see.
And I'm never going to, as I said, I'm a man who walks around like a ninja silently until a deal is done, and
You're
then
not gonna say
I'll be screaming at the rooftops.
Right.
But I'm not saying anything right
So
now.
if I asked you,
Sure.
do you know whether or not you're even on WWE's radar? You wouldn't tell me.
I don't know. I have no idea.
Right.
I have no idea if I'm on Impact's radar. I have no idea if I'm on Ring of Honor's radar.
Right.
I have no idea. And that's the thing, is you guys get to have the blast and the fun of all time of watching a prodigy in 2019. Where's he going? What's he doing? Where's he going to go next? What is he going to do next? It's an exciting time.
It is an exciting time. It's a very exciting time.
And I'm not the only guy that's in the position that I'm in. There are plenty other guys. Look, I'm not going to say there's anybody that is as talented as I am, but there are other guys on the independent level right now that are in a very similar position.
Who is your favorite opponent that you have had the pleasure of sharing the squared circle with? Or the displeasure?
Well, I've never really enjoyed wrestling any of these professional wrestlers because a lot of them aren't exactly. Would you want to touch some of these guys, Sam? I
wouldn't.
Let's face the fact.
No, not me. That's why I broadcast.
100%. And I respect that.
Thank
I mean, you also broadcast because you're a very small man, but
Well, yeah. I mean, that would be the other issue is if I try to touch them, I get hurt.
absolutely.
So,
There are plenty of names that come to my mind of people that made me look human in the squared circle.
meaning what?
When I say human, meaning not like a god, because 99.9% of the time when somebody's in a ring with me, it's like trying to, I'm trying to think of a good example here. Have you ever tried to lift 558 pounds of sheer weight off the ground while singing the Pledge of Allegiance backwards and jumping up and down?
Have I? No, I haven't done that.
Okay, that's
Right.
because it's almost physically impossible,
It
right?
sounds extremely difficult.
Very difficult. That's what it's like wrestling me. However,
Whoa, you're the 558-pound.
I'm
you
that
have
obstacle.
to sing to.
I'm
wow.
that obstacle.
Wow.
However, there are people who have made me look human. And when I
I
say
see.
that, there are people who have made me look, so you get it.
Right.
And I'm sure the listener gets, or maybe they don't. It might go over their head because I'm assuming that most of the people that are listening to this aren't exactly all that bright.
Again, not your problem.
Not my problem.
No.
Not my problem.
No.
I'm
You've
not
made it-
paying for their education.
No,
not
you're
my problem.
No, you're not. You've made it as clear as you can.
I would have to name guys such as, unfortunately, I'd have to name Joey Janela, even though that guy is so fried. Joey Janela, a guy by the name of VSK, Alex Reynolds, Ricky Shane Page, Ethan Page, Jimmy Havoc, Sami Callihan. I mean, it really is a struggle for me to try to pick out names in the very small category of people that almost looked equal to me.
Right.
But those are the names that pop up in the front of my head. And then there are also names of people that I watch that I think are talented. Stokely Hathaway, I don't know if you're aware of Stokely
course I know
Hathaway's
Stokely
work.
Hathaway.
I've never wrestled him. I never would wrestle him. We're BFFs.
Really?
But you kidding me? Absolutely. I'm sorry, do you feel like I shouldn't have Stokely Hathaway as my friend? What do you
No,
alluding to
I don't
there?
know Stokely that well.
Okay, most people don't, but you know who does?
Probably.
This guy.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
He's a tremendous talent. There's so many people that I've stepped in the ring with that I had a lot of. Matt Cross as well. Mm-hmm. Yeah, 100% Matt
Of course. Do you have anybody looking forward that you're like, that's a match that I want to have, just whether it's to prove to yourself, whether it's to prove to other people, whether you just think it would be a great competition to display to the world?
Cody Rhodes.
You'd like to have a Cody Rhodes
I would
match?
like to wrestle Cody Rhodes. And Cody Rhodes, I might not be his best friend, but he's my best friend. Let me to make that very clear because of the opportunity that he had.
Got it.
He had in. But I foresee that being a matchup that would equate to a Dusty Flair.
It's quite a statement.
In the coming years. And I think somebody would be able to take a step back, look at that, or Tully Dusty. I mean, there's a lot of different.
Sure.
But I personally feel that matchup would be absolutely incredible. No, I would, dude, fair square. I wouldn't be up any, there'd be no tricks in my sleeve.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't be throwing eye pokes. I wouldn't be low blow.
Too much respect for that.
It'd be a clean match.
Right.
It'd be a clean match.
I see.
And it would be fair straight down the middle just to see who is the better man. That's all. And I think that would be a very interesting match for people to watch.
Now you have, and I'll tell you how I got here. Of course, you know who was the last person on this podcast that I said, who would you want to compete with? And they said Cody Rhodes was David Arquette.
Sure.
David Arquette
bought me a Burberry scarf.
He did.
Did you know that?
No, I didn't know.
Yeah, I tweeted about it. David Arquette, he hit me up. He said, hey, I'm a huge fan. I responded, everybody is. What do you want?
Right.
And he said, I'd like to buy you a Burberry scarf for All In. And I said, yeah, man, whatever. And I wore it. I wore the David Arquette Burberry scarf out.
That's incredible.
For my matchup, yes.
That's incredible. But he reminded me of Nick Gage, who I believe you also, you have a matchup coming with Nick Gage.
Yeah.
And I have to ask you, is this something that weighs on you? Because to me, like you said, I'm not a physically imposing man. I'm not somebody, this isn't my forte, but of all the people that I would want to be in a wrestling ring with, it feels like Nick Gage would be bottom of the list.
Nick Gage is an ex-con, a jailbird, and a scumbag. And I think anybody...
By the way, I was afraid because he was in Jersey All-Pro. I was afraid of Nick Gage before he went to jail.
Listen, there's no reason to be afraid of somebody who has about as many teeth as they do brain cells. When I walk in to the Inspire Pro Wrestling event, where this is occurring, by the way, ladies and gentlemen, in Texas, I can assure you, I already have a game plan. We discussed it. If he tries to hit me with a chair, I'm going to move out of the way.
You avoid the chair.
If he sets up a table and puts me on top of it, I'm going to get off the table. If he sets up a pane of glass, I'm going to stomp on it.
What type of offense, though, are we thinking? There's the defense. What type of offense are we thinking?
Sam.
Yeah.
A good offense is a great defense. You ever heard that phrase before?
Yes, they say that in sports.
You're welcome.
Yeah. So that's it. When you break enough panes of glass with your foot, and
now
it's
what?
like,
Because he can't professionally wrestle.
I
mean, he's just a deathmatch guy.
I see.
Are you really going to look at me and tell me Nick Gage is as proficient as a professional wrestler as Maxwell Jacob Friedman?
I'm not going to get involved in all that.
I'm sorry?
I don't. I mean, again, because I'm not a professional wrestler.
Okay.
I haven't been trained.
Sam, Nick's not here. Just allow me to clarify. All right?
It's just this is broadcast everywhere.
Yeah.
I don't need to be involved in all that.
Understand.
This is between you and Nick Gage. I'm happy as long as the people are happy.
But to put it lightly, I look forward to bringing the American judicial system to Nick Gage once more.
Judicial system.
Is that not what I said?
You said judicial system.
However I want to pronounce something is the right way for it to be pronounced.
Corrected you. That was rude. I'm
Watch
sorry.
yourself.
I apologize.
Watch yourself.
I apologize. But you want to bring down the long arm of the law onto Nick Gage.
Absolutely.
Okay. Well, good luck with that. I think if anybody could do it, I don't see why not you.
Yeah, 100%.
MJF, is there anything that you would like to alert the people to?
What I would like to alert the people is my 2018 was absolutely tremendous.
It's hard to argue, and Like I said, we had this conversation in the beginning of this conversation.
Sure.
About ego and confidence. And I would love to sit there because of how confidently you say that and go, it wasn't that great. But it was.
Sure.
You know, no matter whether anybody likes you or not.
Yeah.
You had a great 2018.
Nothing you can say about it,
You
but
can't.
that. However, if you think 2018 was interesting,
I do.
just you wait. Just you wait for 2019, because I am going to blow the roof off of every single idea that people have behind experience levels and age. I am going to change the game. I appreciate what people prior to me have done in my age bracket. However, I am going to make people forget how long I've been wrestling, because they're going to go, this person is uncomparable to anybody who has ever stepped foot in our sport. That is what my 2019 is going to be.
My God, lofty goals. By the way, when one question: when you get injured, right, and you miss Cage of Death, and,
Yes.
and the whole thing, your first major injury in wrestling, was it?
I had a knee issue. I messed my knee up one time
Did it take you out of wrestling?
for a little bit, but it wasn't wild. It was nothing crazy.
Do those injuries, when it's early in your career, I feel like those are the moments where realization starts to sit in. Those are the moments where I think some people go like, you know what, I can't do this. This isn't going to be the first one of these, blah, blah, blah. What are the thoughts when you're young, you got no guarantees, you're just starting to build a little momentum, and you get taken out? We saw it happen to Joey Janela. He was on.
Yeah.
He was also there for All In.
Yes, he was.
He was doing all kinds of stuff. He was getting ready for his next big show that had his name all over it. He was on Notsam Wrestling, and then boom, he's out for a year. What does it do mentally? Like, how do you get yourself through an injury when you're at the level that you're at?
For me, what I would say personally and professionally, when it happens, it sucks. There's no other way to describe it, because not only do I love money, I love wrestling.
Right.
But without wrestling, I don't get what, Sam?
Money.
Exactly.
Right. Both things go away. It's either both or neither.
Yes.
Right.
Luckily, as we said, I got money to blow.
Right. There's plenty of money,
But
but you like to earn more.
Yeah, who doesn't like getting more money?
Right.
But to top all that off, it is frustrating sitting back and watching everything happen while you're gone. I was only gone for like 4 or 5 weeks, but still it gets annoying. But luckily, what I can say, that me and a guy like Janela too, I'll give the devil his due. We both are capable at getting people's attention outside of the realm of bell to bell. I am capable of taking to social media. I am capable of making a video of just this, me and you talking, a podcast, an interview. And I'm able to make sure that nobody forgets who I am or my name. So I wasn't nervous. I was just pissed off.
Right.
For another person who might not have the same capabilities, which nobody really does as I do, with a microphone in front of my mouth, I would have been shitting bricks.
Right.
Because the way, some of these guys get over and get their fan base is by moves. Which, again, I'm not knocking it. We need different flavors of ice cream. But I don't have to worry about stuff when I get injured, because I always can put a microphone in front of my mouth.
Well, it's just good to be you, man.
Dude, you have no idea.
I don't. I wish I did sometimes. I have no idea.
You never will, though. Look at me. Make eye contact with
Okay.
me. You will never know what it's like to be me. Ever.
Bro, I'm 35. I haven't gotten there yet.
Good.
Okay? It's not going to happen for me.
Ever.
It's just...
I'm making eye contact with you because I want to make it very apparent.
Okay.
You will never, ever, be in the same position I'm in, ever. You are going to die knowing that.
Right.
Do you understand that?
And do you mean I might go better, or you're just saying always less than?
Always less than me.
Okay.
Now I'm going to look at the viewer.
Okay.
You as well. Can we zoom this camera in or make a camera cut?
Yeah, here you go.
Here we go.
Go for it.
You will never,
Yeah.
ever attain the same exact lofty goals that I have.
Right.
At the tender age of 22.
Jesus.
Ever. I don't care if you're 30, 40, 50, or about to break 100. Good luck, because you are going to go into the grave knowing that my name is Maxwell Jacob Friedman, and I'm better than you. And you know it.
That sucks. Thank you for joining us, MJF.
Absolutely.
It's been uplifting, to say the least.
That's what I do.
All right, bud. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Of course.
We just shook hands, ladies and gentlemen.
That's right.
Do you have Purell, by the way?
Well, we'll get you some.
Okay,
Don't worry
thank
about
God.
that. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Here is Sam Roberts.
What a great interview with MJF. You know, we're going to have guests like that. I don't know if it'll be MJF exactly, but we're going to have guests. We're going to have all kinds of stuff going on in Phoenix on January 25th, the Friday night before the Royal Rumble. CB Live, Copper Blues Live in Phoenix, Arizona. Make sure that you're there, 7:30 p.m., Friday, January 25th. Not Sam Wrestling Live. Get your tickets now. Just Google CB Live Phoenix, and the place will come right up. You can see I'm there January 25th. Get those tickets now. MJF was great, and MJF is the perfect guest to have on today because today is all about looking forward. You know, last week on the show, we ranked the top 10 moments of 2018, and the reason I like to do that is because we start 2019 with a clean slate. So much going on, even in the first 3 days of 2019. It's unbelievable what's happening in this world of wrestling, within the WWE, outside of the WWE, within the United States, outside of the United States. I mean, think about everything that's going on right now. You've got a shake-up happening on Raw and Smackdown. You got the Royal Rumble around the corner. Wrestle Kingdom is this week. All Elite Wrestling is happening. It's actually happening. The announcement has been made. Wrestling journalists are arguing with each other on Twitter. Vince Russo and Bruce Pritchard are fighting with each other over who's a liar. It's an amazing time to be a wrestling fan and watch the circus happening for all of us. All of us. It's just entertainment as far as the eye can see. From wrestling on TV to wrestling live to wrestling on podcasts, you can literally, in 2019, just decide that wrestling is all you want to consume in your life, and you still wouldn't have time to consume everything. That's how much stuff there is out there. It's a good time to be a wrestling fan. Let's do it. Let's try to break down everything that happened just this week, just in the first couple days of 2019, and take a look at what this year is starting to look like. Folks, let's get into the state of wrestling.
It's now time for this week's State of Wrestling.
Yes, it is. Welcome to the State of Wrestling, the first State of Wrestling, as a matter of fact, of 2019. Of course, we covered Mean Gene Okerlund at the top of the podcast because the life of Mean Gene is by far the biggest story of the week this week. But that's why I wanted to start the podcast with it and save State of Wrestling for some more topical items. Of course, in State of Wrestling, we go over the top 5 stories of the week, according to me. And usually it's in order of most important, the top 5 most important, meaning number 1 is the most important. But I'm going to start with Wrestle Kingdom 13 at number 5. Realistically, it's probably, Realistically, it's probably the number 2 story, but we're starting it with number 5 just for the flow of conversation, I suppose. Wrestle Kingdom 13 goes down on Friday, 3 a.m. Eastern local time here in New York City is when it starts. Of course, I believe it's on New Japan World. I know it's on Fight.tv. I know there are spots to see it. That's always a struggle here in the States to figure out where the best spot is to see Wrestle Kingdom. But there are plenty of spots, and I think Fight.tv is going to be on demand as well. What we're going to be doing on Patreon is Friday afternoon. So it's going to give everybody plenty of time to see it. We're not going to do it immediately after the show. But some point on Friday afternoon, I'll be doing a live Wrestle Kingdom 13 post show where we'll be able to talk about all the matches, what went down, what we thought of the show, everything. Probably sometime, 3, 4 o'clock in the afternoon on Friday after everybody's gotten a chance to see it. And it'll be for, I believe, superstars and above. I don't know, whatever the tiers are, whatever tier gets the live pay-per-view post shows, that's the tier that's going to get this live pay-per-view post show. So the Wrestle Kingdom post show coming for Patreon users at patreon.com/NotSamWrestling. Of course, the Not Sam Shills. You guys can log on Friday afternoon. I'll send an email and everything when I know what time. But you'll be able to communicate. And, of course, as you're watching the show, if you want to send a comment to me either in the Discord room or on the Patreon page, I'll be able to incorporate those questions into the live post show. So go ahead and do that if you're a member. If you're not a member, sign up. Patreon.com/NotSamWrestling. Become a Not Sam Shill today. Interestingly enough, there's no Battle Royal this year. the last several years of Wrestle Kingdom, the pre-show has been all about the Battle Royal and tons of surprise entrants and legendary entrants, whether it's badass Billy Gunn or Jushin Thunder Liger. This year, the pre-show is kicking off with the gauntlet match to determine the number one contenders to the never openweight 6-man tag team championship, and that, of course, is the most violent players with Taguchi versus Yuji Nagata, Jeff Cobb, and Dave Finlay versus Chaos versus Suzuki Gun versus the Elite, which is represented by Hangman Page, Takahashi, and Marty Scurll. This show, Wrestle Kingdom, I think it's going to be interesting for a lot of reasons. First of all, it's being reported at the time of this recording that already, right now, today, it's officially sold more tickets than they sold last year for this show. There are more tickets sold to this year, to Wrestle Kingdom 13, than there were paid attendees at Wrestle Kingdom 12, which, as I've said, look, I said this going into 2019, the only way to really figure out how you're doing in this life is to think about where you were 365 days ago, and have you improved in any way, shape, or form? Are you better, even a little bit? And if the answer is yes, you're crushing. So New Japan, Wrestle Kingdom 13, more tickets sold. Even if it's one more ticket sold than Wrestle Kingdom 12, congratulations, you're crushing. This show is going to be interesting for a lot of the same reasons why Ring of Honor Final Battle was interesting, in the sense that what is the future of the Elite in New Japan? Now, it's a little bit different because in Ring of Honor, we knew that Cody and the Bucks' Ring of Honor contracts were expiring. We didn't know exactly what that meant. Now we know that All Elite Wrestling is happening. It's happening soon. There's going to be a press conference on Tuesday, I believe, to break it all down. Maybe we'll do a bonus show on Patreon after that press conference happens. But will they have a relationship with New Japan the way Ring of Honor does? I would guess no. I find it difficult to believe because Ring of Honor has the relationship with New Japan. So I don't know why Ring of Honor would also want All Elite Wrestling to have a relationship, because I would imagine that Ring of Honor will be the ones that All Elite is really competing with, realistically, more so than WWE, at least at first. So and New Japan is kind of Ring of Honor's trick in their back pocket right now. So I would think that Ring of Honor's contract would not allow another partnership with another organization in the States. So will this be the end of the Elite in New Japan? Of course, Marty Scurll is sticking around Ring of Honor for at least a little while, but Hangman Page isn't. Hangman Page is showing up with All Elite Wrestling. He's already there. He's already apparently signed, if you look at the images that are being posted. And we'll talk about All Elite Wrestling as State of Wrestling continues. But, when you're looking at it, Takahashi, Marty Scurll, they've got time to stick around in New Japan theoretically, but Hangman Page does not, if this All Elite Wrestling is what it is. So, does the Elite get squashed on this show finally? Will they use their time to make the Bullet Club and Jay White and the Tongas look like $1 million? I don't know. I would imagine the Elite will not be the number one contenders to the never openweight 6-man tag team championship. And I hope I would like to see Chaos get it, and they're represented by Goto, Beretta, and Chucky T. So those are the guys that I think I would like to see. Them or Suzuki Gun, I suppose, which is Suzuki, Lance Archer, and Davey Boy Smith Jr. But probably Chaos would be my pick for that one. Big match. This is for the Never Openweight Championship. And this is one that people are thinking could steal the show. Ibushi versus Will Ospreay. Of course, Will Ospreay was not involved in the WWE's Cruiserweight Classic. Ibushi was. But these are two guys that I think really need to make an impact in 2019. They're certainly talked about. They're certainly very much beloved in the world of wrestling, but are they at the top of the list? With more and more organizations popping up, I think that there is more competition and more reason to fight to have your name at the top of that list of the guys that people are talking about. There's big money being put into All Elite Wrestling. WWE is going to have to compete with that by offering bigger money than ever for NXT signees. Ring of Honor is going to have to compete with that by offering bigger money. In order to get that big money, you have to have value. You have to the organizations have to know that you're going to bring audiences to see you. So that is the job that Ibushi and Will Ospreay have at this show. And whether they could be staying in New Japan for the next 10 years. It's just the landscape of wrestling is changing in a way that you got to make an impression. And this is the opportunity for those guys to make an impression, and I think they will. I think Will Ospreay probably needs the win more than Ibushi does, but my preference would probably be Ibushi winning. And again, I'm no New Japan expert. I don't watch every show, but I guess I know enough. Maybe I don't, depending on your perspective. We got the three-way tag team match for the IWGP Junior Heavyweight Tag Team Championship, which is Suzuki Gun versus Roppongi 3K versus the Ingornables de Japón. I'm hoping it's Bushi and Takagi. I love LIJ. Mainly for Naito, but, when that LIJ logo pops up, I pop. When that logo pops, Sam Roberts pops. So that's who I would want to win this one. Zack Sabre Jr. is another guy who's got to make an impression this year. Zack Sabre Jr. is a guy who was in the Cruiserweight Classic, who did not take the WWE up on, entering the 205 Live landscape, which maybe is a good thing. 205 Live was not exactly the runaway success that I think some of the guys there thought it would be, but when you look at it, I think Drew Gulak is doing great in terms of the character work that he's done. Clearly, there are standouts in 205 Live. I think in general, not so much, but like Mustafa Ali is now on the main roster of SmackDown, and he's in the conversation of main event guys. Mustafa Ali has a very early SmackDown vibe. From the initial draft, when you had guys like Edge and Rey Mysterio and all those guys, Eddie Guerrero, on the come-up, about to become the next class of WWE main eventers. Mustafa Ali's in that conversation in 2019, and 205 Live is what got him in the door. Look at guys like Cedric Alexander and Buddy Murphy that have gotten mainstream pay-per-view matches. Now, again, I'm not saying Zack Sabre Jr. should have gone to 205 Live. I think as much, whatever, not panache, but as much weight as Zack Sabre Jr. holds, I think he can do even better outside of WWE at the moment, but this would be the year to do it. It's Zack Sabre Jr. versus Tomohiro Ishii for the British Heavyweight Championship. It seems like you're going to have a British Heavyweight Championship. Not the worst thing in the world to have Zack Sabre Jr. hold the title. It's a three-way tag team match for the IWGP Tag Team Championship. Every match is a title match. I don't know how people don't criticize New Japan for having way too many titles. Of course, Tama Tonga and Tonga Loa, the Gorillas of Destiny, repping the Bullet Club hard, versus LIG, that's Sonata and Evil, versus the Young Bucks. To me, I think that this match is all about the Gorillas of Destiny and the Young Bucks. There's been a lot of tension about the way, especially Tama Tonga, is identifying and defining the Bullet Club. Cody stepped away from it, but at the same time, you look at Tama Tonga's tweets. Tama Tonga is one of the dangerous tweeters in the game. And he's kind of made inference that the stuff the Elite was doing was an offshoot of the Bullet Club, and that he took ownership back of the Bullet Club. When you talk to AJ Styles, when you talk to even Finn Balor about the original Bullet Club, Tama Tonga is a name that comes up. This is, talk to the Machine Gun Carl Anderson about it, Luke Gallows. Tama Tonga is he the last member left of the last founding member of the Bullet Club? Tonga Loa was there too, but one of the founding members of the Bullet Club. And he's got to take ownership back of this thing. I would like to see Tama Tonga pin one of the Young Bucks at this show to retain the IWGP Tag Team Championship. And just to really cement that the Bullet Club is a strong force in New Japan. Of course, you're going to have to see that in the match between Jay White and Okada. Now, that's a bigger match because Jay White kind of needs the win to cement him as the next American star of New Japan. But at the same time, are we going to job out the Rainmaker at Wrestle Kingdom? You know, I have a tough time believing that Okada's not going to win this match. But Jay White really needs it, so we'll see. Speaking of needing it, Juice Robinson is going to need that IWGP United States Championship win from Cody Rhodes. And I think he's going to get it. You know, I think Cody Rhodes is moving on to All Elite Wrestling, and this is going to be Juice Robinson's chance to shine. But as seriously as Cody Rhodes takes wrestling and the wrestling business and tradition and the way things are done, I would imagine Cody is going to make sure that this is a classic, and Juice Robinson is going to be right there, making sure it is too. You know, we all talk about Cody Rhodes and the way he left WWE, but let's make no mistakes about it. Juice Robinson left NXT to find greener pastures, and he has really carved out a career for himself without the notoriety that WWE TV brings you. Being on the main roster brings you a certain level of notoriety. Juice Robinson left that company, the security of that company, without that notoriety, and has really made a name for himself. And I think within the next 2 years or so, Juice Robinson is going to be a name on the top of everybody's lips. Kushida versus Ishimori for the IWGP Junior Heavyweight Championship. Love me some Kushida. The two big matches. Chris Jericho defending that IWGP Intercontinental Championship against Naito. Naito needs this one. And who knows what Jericho's doing? You know, who knows if Jericho's going to stay with New Japan? Maybe Jericho will do stuff with All Elite Wrestling. Jericho tends to know how to be a part of what's cool in wrestling. So he may be waiting for the dust to settle before he really figures out exactly what he's going to do next. I think it would be a great relationship to have him be a part of All Elite Wrestling. It would add that extra level of star power, and at the same time, maintain his, not keep him, but maintain his relevance in the sense that he's maintained his relevance tremendously by going from WWE, hitting up New Japan, now to go to All Elite Wrestling, and then maybe do something else with WWE. Jericho is just on another level right now. But I do think it's time for Naito to get that Intercontinental Championship match back. And of course, Tanahashi, who I think last year when we talked about him, we kind of talked about him falling off a little bit. And I got a little bit of criticism for that. And maybe it was well-founded because he has completely cemented his position as one of the icons of New Japan Pro Wrestling for sure. One of the great heroes that the company has and will ever have. And he's got that IWGP Heavyweight Championship match against Kenny Omega. It remains to be seen where Kenny Omega is going. Is All Elite Wrestling happening for Kenny Omega? If it is, I would imagine it's Tanahashi's time to be champion of New Japan and the IWGP. But if not, I think a lot of people think that this one may be going in favor of Tanahashi, which could be a good reason to give it to Kenny Omega. We'll see what happens, and we'll break it all down over on patreon.com/NotSamWrestling Friday afternoon after the show is done. But I'm really looking forward to seeing it. It's always such a fun time to watch Wrestle Kingdom. I'll wake up in the morning on Friday before I go to the radio show, and I'll be able to watch parts of it live. I love it. I love it very, very much. Speaking of big shows, story number 4 is the first push toward Royal Rumble promotion this week. Of course, it's been pushed towards a little bit, over the last couple weeks, but this week was the first sort of full-fledged, here's what's going on at the Royal Rumble. We've got our Universal Championship match between Brock Lesnar and Braun Strowman. We've got our WWE Championship match between Daniel Bryan and AJ Styles, and what a tremendous Fatal 5-Way match to determine Daniel Bryan's opponent this week on SmackDown. As far as the Royal Rumble matches, the men's Royal Rumble, we've got R-Truth, who's coming in at number 30 because he and Carmella won the Mixed Match Challenge. We got Drew McIntyre, who had a great cage match with Dolph Ziggler. That Claymore kick gets better and better every single time I see it. It's amazing that it doesn't behead people. And all 3 members of the New Day also announced for the Royal Rumble. For the women's Royal Rumble, of course, Carmella, who won the Mixed Match Challenge with R-Truth, as previously stated. We're going to have Natalya, who announced on Raw this week that she was going to enter because she wants her rematch with Ronda Rousey to go down at WrestleMania. Sasha Banks and Bayley both entering. Ember Moon entering in an effort to make this her year. And all 3 members of the Riot Squad, Liv Morgan, Ruby Riott, and Sarah Logan, all entering the Women's Royal Rumble. Now, there was some mention made of the fact that they're not specifically advertising anymore that the winner of the Royal Rumble will get to main event WrestleMania. They're saying that the winner of the Royal Rumble will get a championship match at WrestleMania, which I think is fair, but also not a shock. I mean, the winner of the Royal Rumble can't get the main event of WrestleMania because there's 2 Royal Rumbles. So, we can't. The winner of the men's Royal Rumble, plus there's 4 championships total in 2 matches. So, I don't think that that's shocking. And it's also not like it was ever guaranteed. Ever since there have been 2 titles, I mean, what about Alberto Del Rio winning the Royal Rumble so that he could wrestle Edge first at WrestleMania? I don't think the Royal Rumble has ever been about main eventing WrestleMania. It's been about having the championship match at WrestleMania. There was a time in WWE when it was all about the championship match. We knew that the WWE Championship was going to be the main event, but I think once the draft happened 10 or more years ago, that all went up in the air. Once there was more than one champion, that all went up in the air. And now that the women are becoming what the women are becoming, and we're looking at shows like Survivor Series, where the women are legitimately main eventing, I don't think that there's any reason to sit there and say, well, clearly the winner of one of these 2 matches is going to main event the show. It'll be interesting to see on SmackDown, of course, the conversation between Carmella, Charlotte, and Becky Lynch over who got the women's championship match at Royal Rumble. I really want to see Charlotte and Becky Lynch in the Royal Rumble match. I think it will add a level of unpredictability if both those superstars are in it, because Charlotte or Becky could win that thing, because I don't think anybody's convinced, even though everybody wants Becky Lynch versus Ronda Rousey to be the main event of WrestleMania, I don't think that wrestling fans are convinced that WWE is not going to either go for Charlotte versus Ronda or some kind of a triple threat scenario, because both storylines have been left open. So either way, I think we'd be much better served at having a Carmella-Asuka match at the Royal Rumble. But then you look at it again and you go, well, Carmella's already the number 30 participant in the Royal Rumble, so odds are she's not going to get the title match. There was a graphic that popped up, I think on one of the weekend WWE shows, that Becky Lynch versus Asuka would indeed be the match at Royal Rumble. Now, there is this possibility that Ronda Rousey interferes and stops Becky from beating Asuka. Charlotte goes on to win the Royal Rumble, and then she challenges Asuka. There is still this possibility that even if you've got Becky Lynch versus Asuka at the Royal Rumble in a singles match, you could still have Becky versus Ronda at WrestleMania. Just have the winner of the Royal Rumble challenge the champion who isn't Ronda Rousey. That's the beauty of not guaranteeing a main event slot, just guaranteeing a championship match at WrestleMania. So I'm excited for it. I love Royal Rumble is probably my favorite event of the year. And I think this one will be no exception. It's just unpredictable, and we're able to have so much fun with it. I think on the men's side, Drew McIntyre is the one you got to be looking at. We can move on to story number 3, because it kind of ties into all of this, and that is the 2 showdowns that we've seen over the past couple weeks. We didn't get to talk about AJ Styles and Vince McMahon last week, because last week was all about the year of 2018. But on SmackDown, you've got AJ Styles being confronted by Vince McMahon about being the real AJ Styles. Vince hits him, AJ knocks him in the face, knocks him out, and that sort of tension was played up again on SmackDown this week. You had something similar on Raw, but it was done well enough that people, I don't think, felt like it was repetitive. I certainly didn't feel like it was repetitive. The segment between Triple H and Seth Rollins, I thought was great. Now, it's interesting that both Seth Rollins and AJ, arguably the top good guys on either show right now, in my opinion, the top good guys on either show right now, are having authority figures on Raw and SmackDown tell them that they're not doing well enough. It almost makes me sit there and go, I wonder if this is Vince McMahon's way of saying, hey, you're not doing well enough, or if it's purely storyline. Who knows? But the fact that it's the same storyline basically is happening on both shows, I think that that's a risky scenario. I think that these two have been executed differently enough that, most people, it's probably kind of going under the radar. I just think that we need to keep moving them in two separate directions, and who knows? Maybe end up with a Seth Rollins-AJ Styles match at some point to really determine who the dominant force in the WWE is. But I think that AJ Styles, Seth Rollins, and Drew McIntyre are your three guys to look at in the Royal Rumble. Now, the fact that AJ Styles has his match with Daniel Bryan would lead you to believe that he's not going to be in the 30-man Royal Rumble match. So I'm kind of left with Seth Rollins and Drew McIntyre in the thing. Those would be my picks. And my preference would be for Seth Rollins to win, for Seth Rollins to capture the Universal Championship from Brock Lesnar, and for Drew McIntyre to come after him following WrestleMania. That would be my preference. But my preference doesn't always win out. But I think that both those segments were great. And quite honestly, I think that, and who knew, since the shakeup, which really didn't seem all that dramatic when it happened, I think the shakeup was more of an acknowledgement that the WWE saw what was going on and decided to move forward, because Raw and SmackDown have been much better in the past couple weeks. The holiday, and they were taped, so it'll be interesting to see how they go live, but the holiday versions, the Christmas and New Year shows of Raw and SmackDown, especially the two New Year's shows, fantastic. Better than a lot of shows this year. And usually the holiday shows are the throwaway shows. But the Christmas shows I don't think were, and the New Year shows weren't even a little bit throwaway shows. The New Year shows were shows that you have to go back and watch because they were better than a lot of shows in 2018. I do think, when you talk about the fresh start battle royal thing, you had Apollo Crews looking strong. They're taking some time to tell Zack Ryder's story about not having a match on Raw and about, only ever buying figures on eBay, not having a real action figure collection. I think they brought that up. But I don't necessarily believe that those stories are going to pan out. You know what I mean? I think that WWE sometimes have a tendency of being like, okay, let's refresh everything. Let's get these guys that maybe haven't had the greatest win-loss record, that maybe haven't done that much in the past year or two, and let's do something with them. The WWE has a tendency of starting that and then realizing like, oh yeah, I guess this is why we didn't do anything with them. And they still kind of don't. I mean, think about all the mini pushes that Zack Ryder has had in his career, and I think Apollo Crews is in the same boat, That's not to say you should be pessimistic about it, but I think realistically, the guys in the fresh start battle royal are probably not going to get a fresh start. I think Finn Balor might. I think guys that are on the cusp of being main event guys might have an opportunity here. I think Baron Corbin will get to a place where he's a big main event bad guy. I think Finn Balor's going to have a pretty good year. But in terms of those other guys, I don't think No Way Jose is going anywhere anytime soon. Let's talk about the number 2 story of the week. That's John Cena's return to SmackDown, and the fact that the WWE decides to use that moment to push forward Becky Lynch, which I thought was such a great step forward. Such a great opportunity for Becky Lynch. And, as I sat there, I was like, okay, when John Cena, first of all, Zelina Vega comes out, and I love that they're giving Zelina Vega Paul Heyman's lines. My name is Zelina Vega, and this is blah, 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 blah. I think that they're doing that on purpose. I think they want people to draw parallels to Paul Heyman and Zelina Vega. There aren't that many managers, agents, advocates. There aren't that many people in that role in WWE right now. So I feel like when somebody does pop up, whether it's Drake Maverick or Zelina Vega or Paul Heyman, it's because WWE has a lot of faith in those people. And I think WWE has a tremendous amount of faith in Zelina Vega, and they should. I mean, she just instantly has a way of going out there and owning an arena. She gets on that microphone, and she forces people to pay attention to her, which you can't take for granted. I mean, that is a very valuable skill to have. So I was really happy to see her get the shine in that segment. And I was happy to see John Cena and Becky Lynch together. When they formed the tag team, I was like, let's not make this hokey, because you run the risk of Becky Lynch coming across like John Cena's assistant. You know what I mean? Becky Lynch, to get the rub from John Cena is a good thing, but to get what I call the tugboat rub, in the sense that, okay, we want you to cheer for Becky Lynch because she's friends with John Cena. Like, I don't know if Becky needs that. And that's why I thought it was so great at the end of the match when John Cena goes for the handshake with his hair all over the place and Becky Lynch hit him with the "you can't see me," completely faked him out and walked out, elbows pointing outwards, proud as a peacock, walking up that aisle as if to say, "No, John, I don't need to shake your hand. In case you hadn't heard, I'm already the man." Loved it. I thought that the fact that it ended there was perfect. Let's get to the number one story of the week. This is the one. All Elite Wrestling is confirmed. All Elite Wrestling is announced New Year's Day, 3 a.m. Eastern Time, 12 a.m. Pacific. Cody Rhodes and the Young Bucks announced that they put up the logo. All Elite Wrestling is happening. Double or Nothing is happening. We can assume that Double or Nothing is an event of some sort, maybe their second big pay-per-view. Now, here's what we know about All Elite Wrestling. Based on their Twitter account, we've got Cody Rhodes, the Young Bucks, Hangman Page, and the family of those people. Based on the photo, we also saw Frankie Kazarian, Christopher Daniels, Scorpio Sky. Those guys were also on the flyer for the people that would be at this All Elite Wrestling press conference event thing that's happening on Tuesday, which I'm excited to see what comes out of it. But they're doubling down, Double or Nothing, and they're betting on themselves. Apparently, they've got money backing them. They've got a guy named Tony Khan, who is a co-owner of the Jacksonville Jaguars, comes from a family that is reported to be valued at over $6 billion. So they've got a one would think, and apparently he's a big wrestling fan too, which is a good thing. So one would think they've got a pretty significant financial backer going on. According to Dave Meltzer, they've got multiple parties interested in television, especially after All In went across so well. People liked it. The production value was high. Don't forget, they were able to get the All In pre-show on WGN. Even if All Elite Wrestling just manages to get a weekly time slot on WGN, that would be a huge, huge get for them. I think the Young Bucks and Cody Rhodes, I read, are being listed as executive vice presidents. One of the rumors I read was that the Young Bucks were going to be in more booker positions, whereas Cody Rhodes would be in more of a producer position. I don't know what that means to all of us so much, other than the fact that these guys are going to be the creative force behind this show, behind All Elite Wrestling. And look, I think that I think it'll be interesting to see exactly how this thing is laid out. Cody comes from a bloodline of promoters. The Rhodes name goes with promoting wrestling. Dusty Rhodes, right? Cody also has been in the belly of the beast. He was raised in the WWE. He knows how it all works. He knows the secrets. He knows the things that would never occur to you or I. That's a very, very valuable asset. Now, again, I would have loved to see these guys pop up in the Royal Rumble, but for the wrestling industry as a whole, this has the potential to mean a lot more. It's really, really crazy. And Cody talked about it a little bit this week, that you've got three guys that are three of the hottest free agents in the world, and they've all decided to trust in themselves and each other as opposed to doing what traditionally has been the obvious move, which is head over to WWE. I don't know if I would have made that move. Cody luckily has been to WWE before. Because the thing about WWE is you're a kid, you're a wrestling fan, you have a dream to be a wrestler. It means you have a dream to be in the WWE. And Cody and the Bucks are changing all that now. I think that this is the best news for people like MJF, who was on the show today. I think Dalton Castle. I think guys like that. This could be incredible news for him. One question was brought up, which is, did Ring of Honor make a mistake partnering with them to promote All In? Because what they did was to promote and produce. Because what they did was they created their own competition. At the same time, without All In, I don't think the Madison Square Garden show would have happened, but New Japan had a lot to do with that. Historically, we're going to have to wait and see. I mean, if Ring of Honor survives this thing, then I don't think historically we'll look back on this as a mistake. But if Ring of Honor goes under, then I think this will be the moment that people go, yeah, they never should have done that with All In. It proved to the world what Cody and the Bucks can do when they're together. So we're going to talk a lot more about All Elite Wrestling after the press conference. You know, I don't think immediately it's going to be competition, quote unquote, to WWE. You have to understand, WWE is closer to Disney than it is to Ring of Honor. WWE is a giant entertainment company. You know, so starting a wrestling promotion, you're not going to compete with WWE on a real, like, mono level. But All Elite Wrestling has a major opportunity to jump up to number 2 really, really quickly. And the more successful they are, the more investors they can get in that company, the more people they can get putting money into that company. And the more money they put into the company, the more likely they are to get to a place where they can compete with WWE. Look, for a long time, people did not think of WCW as actual competition for WWE. And then the Turner organization decided to spend some money on it, and it became competition for the WWE. We'll see what happens here. The wrestling industry has a lot of talent in it. And the WWE has a lot of people that could benefit from knowing that there are other places to go if they wanted to go. All Elite Wrestling has to be able to maintain. That's going to be the key here, is maintenance. Being able to maintain, being able to stay alive. Not put on one more show, not be open for a year. All Elite Wrestling needs to have a plan to stay open and to grow over the next 5 years. And if they've got that going on, they're going to be a real force. I can't wait to see what happens at this press conference. It's an amazing time in the world of pro wrestling. 2019 is fabulous. You guys are fabulous. I appreciate you being here this week on Not Sam Wrestling. Don't forget, sign up for Patreon at patreon.com/NotSamWrestling. And Phoenix, Arizona, we are coming your way. CB Live. Phoenix, Arizona, January 25th. Only a few weeks away. The Friday before the Royal Rumble, 7:30 p.m. I'm putting together a very, very fun show that I want you to be at. Be there, Phoenix, Arizona, Friday, January 25th, 7:30 p.m. CB Live. We'll see you then, and we'll see you next week. Goodbye, everybody, from all of us, which is me, at Not Sam Wrestling.
Thanks for listening. Follow at Not Sam on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube.
Rate, review, and subscribe. This has been Not Sam Wrestling. Not Sam Wrestling.